In the vast, dramatic sweep of Chinese history, among all the divine emperors and legendary warriors, one name stands apart, wrapped in awe, terror, and mystery: Wu Zetian. She was the only woman to ever sit on the dragon throne, ruling as emperor in her own name. For nearly 50 years, she was at the center of power, guiding the vast Chinese empire through a period of cultural flourishing and incredible influence. But power, especially in Imperial China, always comes with a price. And the story of Wu Zetian is soaked in blood. The official history, written by the men who came after her, paints a portrait of a ruthless tyrant who clawed her way to the top through manipulation, conspiracy, and murder. They called her a woman, hated by gods and men alike. And the most shocking accusation of all, the one that has defined her legacy for over 1,000 years, is an act of almost unimaginable cruelty. To become the most powerful woman in China, Wu Zetian was accused of the ultimate betrayal, smothering her own newborn daughter in her crib. It was an act of cold, calculated ambition that allegedly cleared her path to becoming empress. But did it actually happen? Was she a monstrous mother who would sacrifice her own child for a crown? Or was this the ultimate smear campaign, a vicious lie crafted to destroy the reputation of a woman who dared to rule in a man's world? Who was the real woman behind the legend? This is the story of China's only female emperor, a brilliant politician, a ruthless operator, and the alleged murderer of her own children. Our story begins not in a palace, but in a wealthy, aristocratic home in the year 624. The girl who would one day rule China was named Wu Zhao, and unlike most women of her time, who were confined to the home, Wu's father encouraged her to read, to study the classics, and to learn about politics. She developed a razor-sharp intellect and a fierce, unyielding spirit, qualities that would define the rest of her life. At just 14, her beauty and intelligence caught the eye of the imperial court, and she was brought to the palace as a concubine for the great Emperor Taizong. She was given a lowly rank, but Wu was never going to be content living in the emperor's shadow. While her official duties might have involved managing the imperial laundry, she dared to speak with the emperor about history and politics. Impressed, Taizong made her his personal secretary, which gave her an incredible, first-hand education in how power really worked. It was during this time, in a court full of whispers and secret alliances, that she met the man who would change her life, the crown prince, Li Ji, the emperor's own son. A forbidden and incredibly dangerous affair began to bloom between the prince and his father's concubine. It was a secret that could have gotten them both killed. In 649, Emperor Taizong died. As a childless concubine, tradition dictated a grim future for Wu. Her head was shaved, and she was sent to the Ganya monastery to live out her days as a Buddhist nun. For anyone else, that would have been the end of the story. But Wu Zetian wasn't just anyone, and Li Ji, now the new Emperor Gaozong, hadn't forgotten her. Whether it was true love, a smart political move, or Wu's own clever scheming from inside the temple, the new emperor soon arranged for her scandalous return to the palace. One popular story even claims that Emperor Gaozong's own wife, Empress Wang, was the one who brought Wu back. The empress was childless and was getting jealous of another woman, Consort Xiao, who had the emperor's favor. Wang figured that bringing Wu back would be a useful distraction. It turned out to be a fatal mistake, a political blunder that would cost Empress Wang everything. When she returned to the palace, Wu Zetian was no longer a naive girl. She was a master strategist in the treacherous world of the imperial harem, a viper's nest of jealousy and deadly rivalries. She quickly gained the emperor's favor, building a network of allies and spies who kept her informed of every plot. Emperor Gaozong was completely captivated. Soon, both Empress Wang and Consort Xiao found themselves on the outside looking in. The two former rivals desperately teamed up against Wu, but it was already too late. Wu gave birth to two sons, securing her position even further, while Empress Wang remained childless. Wu's ambition was singular. She wanted to be empress. But to get there, she had to get rid of her rivals for good. And that brings us to the event that would forever stain her name. In 654, Wu gave birth to a baby girl. The traditional story, written by historians who were deeply hostile to a woman holding power, is chilling. It claims that one day, after Empress Wang had visited the nursery to see the newborn, Wu waited until she was alone and smothered her own infant daughter. When Emperor Gaozong arrived, She played the part of a grieving mother perfectly, tearfully blaming the childless Empress Wang for the murder. The emperor, already tired of Wang and completely under Wu's spell, believed her. That accusation, true or not, was the final nail in the coffin. Despite protests from his chancellors, Emperor Gaozong stripped Empress Wang and consort Xiao of their titles and had them thrown in prison. In the year 655, Wu Zetian's path was finally clear. She was made Empress Consort, the most powerful woman in the empire. Her vengeance, however, wasn't over. The historical accounts, likely exaggerated to make her seem more monstrous, claim she ordered a horrific end for her rivals. The stories say she had their hands and feet cut off and their bodies thrown into large wine vats, taunting them that they could now be drunk to the bone. While those gruesome details are probably propaganda, the message was clear. Her rivals were removed permanently and brutally. As empress, Wu's power grew immensely. Emperor Gaozong was often sick, suffering from strokes and headaches that left him unable to rule. Wu, with her sharp mind and deep understanding of politics, stepped in. She started attending court meetings, sitting behind a screen just behind the emperor's throne, listening, advising, and increasingly, making the decisions herself. This became known as the rule of the two sages, but everyone knew Wu was the one really in charge. She wasn't just pulling strings from the shadows, she was actively governing. She proposed a series of policies called the 12 Suggestions, which included things like promoting agriculture, cutting taxes, and recruiting talented officials based on skill, not family name. These popular reforms earned her support from the common people and proved she was a capable leader. But the history books, written by her enemies, tell another, darker story. They accuse her of ruthlessly eliminating anyone who stood in her way, including her own sons. Her eldest son and crown prince, Li Hong, was a capable young man who started to push for more control. In 675, he died suddenly. Traditional historians are almost certain that Empress Wu poisoned him to remove the challenge to her power. Her second son, Li Xian, was then made crown prince. But their relationship soured, especially after Li Xian heard rumors that he wasn't Wu's son at all. Soon, a stash of weapons was conveniently found in his palace. He was accused of treason, exiled, and later forced to commit suicide. When Emperor Gaozong finally died in 683, Wu didn't step back. She put her third son on the throne as a puppet, and when he started showing a little independence, she had him deposed and exiled, too. She then installed her fourth and youngest son, who was basically kept as a prisoner in the palace. Now, Wu was ruling openly as Empress Dowager and Regent. To tighten her grip, she unleashed a reign of terror, establishing a secret police force run by famously cruel officials. An atmosphere of fear fell over the capital. Spies were everywhere, and she used them to purge the court of her enemies. There's one infamous story that shows just how terrifying her secret police were. An official named Lai Junxin was tasked with interrogating another official, Zhou Xing. He invited Zhou to dinner and asked, "I'm having trouble with a prisoner who won't confess. Any ideas?" Zhou replied, "Easy. Get a large urn, build a fire around it, and put the accused inside. He'll confess to anything." Lai Junxin then had an urn brought in and a fire lit. He turned to his guest and said, "I have an order from the Empress concerning you. Please, step into the urn." Terrified, Zhou confessed on the spot. Having crushed all opposition, Wu Zetian took the final, unthinkable step. In the year 690, she had her son abdicate, set aside the Tang Dynasty, and declared her own dynasty, the Zhou. She gave herself a new name, Wu Zetian, and ascended the dragon throne not as a consort or a regent, but as Huangdi, emperor. She was the first and only woman in Chinese history to ever hold that title. As emperor, Wu Zetian proved to be a remarkably effective ruler. The terror of her early years gave way to a period of stability and prosperity. Now that she wasn't fighting for power, she could focus on governing. One of her biggest achievements was reforming the imperial examination system. For centuries, top government jobs went to a handful of powerful aristocratic families. Wu Zetian opened up the exams to men from lower classes, promoting them based on merit, not connections. This created a new class of skilled officials who were loyal to her personally. It was a social revolution. Her economic policies also brought prosperity. She supported farmers, cut taxes, and invested in public works. Militarily, she was a smart commander. She launched campaigns that secured China's borders, particularly against the Tibetan Empire, and reopened the vital Silk Road. Wu was also a great patron of culture and religion. She made Buddhism a state-sponsored religion, even using scriptures that prophesied a female ruler to help justify her own reign. She also proved to have a brilliant eye for talent. One of her most famous advisors was the Chancellor Di Renjia, later immortalized as the brilliant Judge Di. Di Renjia was one of the few people who dared to speak his mind to the Empress, offering honest criticism and advice. He urged her to be more moderate and, crucially, to think about the future. It was Di Renjia who patiently convinced her to recall her exiled son, Li Xian, and make him crown prince again, arguing that only a son could properly honor her after her death. As Wu Zetian entered her final years, her legendary grip on power started to slip. Now in her late 70s and early 80s, she was often sick. She began to rely heavily on two young, handsome courtiers, the Zhang brothers, who became her lovers and closest companions. She showered them with titles and power, which angered many at court who saw the brothers as arrogant and dangerous. Officials began to fear the Zhang brothers were planning to take over after she died. In February 705, while the empress was gravely ill, a group of ministers and generals staged a palace coup. They stormed the palace, executed the Zhang brothers, and surrounded the empress's chambers. They forced the ailing, 80-year-old ruler to abdicate in favor of her son, Li Xian. Powerless, Wu Zetian didn't resist. The Tang Dynasty was restored. She died later that year. In her will, she made one last, stunning request. She asked that the title of emperor be removed and that she be buried as empress consort next to her husband. And for her tombstone, she decreed that it be left completely blank. To this day, at the Qianling Mausoleum, her massive, wordless stele stands silent, a stark contrast to her husband's monument next to it, which is covered in characters praising his achievements. Why leave it blank? Was it supreme confidence, a statement that her accomplishments were too great for words? Was it an admission of guilt? Or was it her final, brilliant move, a challenge to all of us, leaving it to future generations to judge her legacy? So who was Wu Zetian? The cruel monster of legend who murdered her own children for a crown? Or a brilliant and capable ruler who did what she had to do to rule in a world designed to keep women powerless? The story of her strangling her daughter is the cornerstone of her evil reputation, yet it comes from men who believed a woman ruling was unnatural. It's entirely possible the infant died of natural causes. Infant mortality was tragically high, and Wu simply used the opportunity to frame a rival. It's also possible the entire story was a fabrication, a piece of character assassination designed to demonize China's only female emperor. What isn't debated are her accomplishments. She reformed the government, stabilized the empire, and oversaw an era of cultural and economic prosperity. She broke every rule to seize the highest seat of power. Her legacy remains as complex and as silent as her blank monument. She was a mother, a politician, a tyrant, and a visionary. The only woman to ever wear the dragon robes. And in the end, she leaves it to us to fill in the blanks. What do you think? Was Wu Zetian a feminist icon or a ruthless tyrant? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to explore more complex figures from history, make sure to subscribe.